Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing, and you see there Neil's pretty happy to see us as well today. That's what he looks like. A lot of people say, what does Neil actually look like? You don't show him enough. Well, I've shown a few clips at the start of the videos, and if you're listening actually on Spotify and you're wondering why there is a 5 to 10 second little bit of silence at the start of the video, that's because I'm showing Neil doing his thing. So as I did listen to myself, sometimes I'll whack it on just to have a bit of a look at what's happening or what you guys are listening to and whether it makes sense. And I listened to the Spotify episode in my car yesterday and thought, yeah, I wonder what people are thinking out there with that first 10 seconds where there's this blank noise. But it is Neil, if you are listening. But on this day in boxing history, not a lot happened. Actually, I could only really find one thing. And it's funny, if you go to, well, you type it into the net and little things come up, this day and age of AI and all the rest of it. It brings up a heap of stuff. The problem is if you actually research it and go to BoxRec and actually check the records, they're wrong. So don't trust everything you see. Well, it's an understatement, I suppose, to say don't trust everything you see with AI. But I couldn't really get much, so I typed in a couple of different things on a couple of different sites, and it came up and every single one of them was wrong. So I have researched this one. The only one I could find was back in 1987. And a lot of you will not be familiar with this guy, but his name is Baby Sugar Roja. And I do remember him. Well, I don't remember him too well. I do remember the name, but I don't remember seeing him fight. But he won the WBC Super Flyweight Championship with a 12-round unanimous decision win over Argentina's Tamani Farga. The fight was in Miami, and that's all I could find on this day. So I won't take up too much of your time with the on this days. Now, what else is going on in the Australian scene? I see they're still bringing out more and more of these videos for the Nikita Tszyu fight and Michael Zerafa on the undercard as well. And you know, I think I've said on a couple of videos, it just seems like they are really investing heavily in the promotion of this show. And it probably does make a lot of sense in that with Tim Tszyu in limbo at the moment, that they really need the next the next bunch of stars, I suppose, to step in and take up the mantle. So I did see they did a Q&A with both Nikita and Michael. The Nikita one was pretty quick, actually. It was a little bit of a barb at Michael Zerafa, I suppose, if you want to call it that. They said who cops more hate than they should in Australian boxing, and he said, yeah, well, Michael Zerafa. And then they said, well, who doesn't cop enough hate in Australian boxing? And he said, Michael Zerafa. So obviously nicely edited just to maybe spark things up a little bit between them, I suppose. But Michael Zerafa, interestingly, though, it was a bit more detailed, and they did actually ask him his opinion on a lot of different fights and probably where he stands in the world of boxing and that as well. And it was interesting, they asked him fighters versus fighters, and they did say Tim Tszyu versus Nikita Tszyu, and he said Nikita Tszyu, it looks like he's going to stick to that narrative. Yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, is it there to pump up a potential fight? Probably, but I think, look, it's amazing now that Tim has actually lost to Fundora for a second time, the amount of people that have actually said that Nikita is the better fighter, and it's amazing that he hasn't fought for a year, but all of a sudden he's a better fighter than Tim. And a year ago, no one would have even dared to even suggest that, but all of a sudden now everyone's saying it, and especially Michael Zerafa. I don't know whether it's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek or it's a little bit of maybe an extra barb at Tim Tszyu, just to maybe get him thinking, or because when you remember, Tim all along has said, since the first fight was cancelled, has said, not interested now. I'm not going to give that guy a payday. I won't fight him. I'm not going to give him any attention or publicity or his name on a poster of a big fight. And maybe this is a way of Michael just saying, well, I'll just keep throwing these little things at you just to make sure that you know I'm still there. And to say that in a fight he would back Nikita to beat Tim, who knows, maybe that's another little barb from Michael. But he was asked a few different questions, probably about the middleweight division, actually. And there is some really good fights out there. You've got probably the top of the tree, and I'm not sure whether we're counting Nikita in the middleweight division these days. There has actually been talk that he might actually go up to middleweight, I'm not sure. He does have a pretty big frame. I actually walked past him in Las Vegas, and I didn't sort of say anything. He was sort of walking towards me with his mum. Was in the MGM Grand, and he was a little bit over, but he was sort of walking towards me. I was walking the opposite direction, of course, and I had a look at him. He's a big unit, Nikita. I've actually met him before after one of his fights, but it's sort of hard to gauge. I think now he looks a lot bigger, and I know he's probably, well, what was that, about 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. So I understand he's probably carrying a little bit more and hasn't sort of thinned down to the 154-pound limit yet. But really solid guy. When I say he looked bigger, I'm not talking about a little bit of spare tire around the midriff. I'm talking about just big, like a big upper body, big shoulders. It looked almost, well, I was going to say looked like a swimmer, not probably tall enough to be a swimmer, but very big on the upper body and just a V shape, and he looks in really good condition. So as I said, let's see whether he goes up to middleweight or not. But Michael was asked about some of the fights, Brock Jarvis versus the likes of Koa Mazudia and Nikita himself and a few of the others. And yeah, there's some good fights there. You look at, you got Joel Camilleri still up there. You've got Koa Mazudia. I'm not sure what Wade Ryan's doing these days, but obviously Michael and Matteo Tapia and Brock Jarvis there. So yeah, and potentially maybe Tszyu as well. But the only problem is I'm not quite sure those real top echelon fighters are probably going to fight. Maybe because you sort of look through them, and Michael's obviously intent on the world rank stuff, and he's actually good friends with Matteo Tapia, and they're on similar paths. So I doubt that fight will sort of ever happen. Would be great for Australian boxing, but I doubt it. Brock Jarvis is another one. He's probably someone I could potentially see in there with Nikita. And you probably get the idea that because they've got him on this card, that's what they're potentially looking at as a bit of a fallback for Nikita, as maybe someone they could put him in there with. Again, I don't see Nikita fighting someone like Matteo Tapia either. Those sort of three, well, I was going to say the three, obviously they're talking about Zarafa and Nikita, but I don't see Tapia in the mix as well. Joel Camilleri is an interesting one. Obviously not at the level of those three particular guys, Nikita, Michael and Tapia, but can be very, very awkward. And he can fight. He's a good fighter, Joel, but he's obviously not at, or in my opinion anyway, at that real world level. But he can still sort of maybe cause maybe a banana peel for one of those guys. I wouldn't mind actually seeing Joel and maybe Brock Jarvis fight. I think that will be a really good one. Koa Mazudia is always a good one to throw in there as well. He's another one that could fight Brock Jarvis. He's obviously already fought Joel Camilleri twice, so I don't see that fight happening, but there is some good scraps in there, and maybe I'll do on one of the episodes just maybe some of the better all Aussie fights that can be made. But in the middleweight division, definitely a few out there. The only problem is that again, they've all got their own agendas. As I said, with Michael and Matteo and Nikita, they're all sort of on their own sort of paths. And then you've got Cohen and let's maybe see if Isaac Hardman comes back, which will be great. But you've got those other guys. It just comes down to money and obviously the fact that if one of them loses, sets them right back. It's interesting to see what will happen with those guys going forward. But again, some really good names. If you haven't seen it, it's on the main event Facebook page, by the way, the interviews with the guys. So check them out. What else is going on in the world of boxing? Oh, well, speaking of Nikita, I read an article about him yesterday, and it was a little bit, this is probably another, I suppose, example of them really trying to delve into Nikita and really make him that star. You can really see that the emphasis, I said at the start of the video, that the emphasis seems to be now that Tim is sort of pushed to the side, and who knows what's going to happen with him. They're really pushing for Nikita, and they had an article in that, it was in the Herald Sun, I read it, but it's probably doing the rounds in other publications as well. But when he was in Las Vegas, he went to a sex museum. This is what the article is about, him going to a sex museum. And I suppose what they were trying to, highlight is the quirkiness of Nikita, And he said, I think they said normally if Nikita was sort of going somewhere in Vegas or anywhere, you know, there might be a few of the team members that would sort of jump at the opportunity to go with him somewhere. But on that particular occasion, he had to walk around or go to the sex museum by himself. And he said he was walking around like a happy tourist with his camera, snapping all the artwork. And I think he might have bought a key ring in the shape of, you know what? So in the male appendage. This is a weird guy, but as I said, it just seems like the boxing media have almost been, I don't know whether it's instructed or encouraged to really show another side of Nikita and try and build him into that star. Now, let's face it, he already is a pay-per-view star. And I think they did have an example of him versus Tim, is that Tim had his first pay-per-view, I think, after 12 fights. It was actually against Joel Camilleri, and it tanked, according to the publication there, the Herald Sun. And I remember that fight actually thinking, what the hell is this fight doing as a pay-per-view? This is before, you know, Tim was the star that he was, and Joel was sort of the club fighter from Melbourne, and probably understandably it didn't do too well, and obviously that changed because Tim became probably our biggest pay-per-view star ever. And now, I think, as I said, 12 fights, and I think with Nikita, he had his first pay-per-view, what was his third or fourth fight, and has had big numbers in every single one of his fights. Now, I'm not sure that's just because of the trail that Tim sort of paid for him, that the Tszyu name was put up there, so it didn't really matter whether it was Tim and Nikita, I don't know. But the facts of the matter are, he is now a star and on the rise, and now it looks like Foxtel and Main Event and everyone are putting all the eggs in the basket of Nikita Tszyu. Now, the big thing with that, of course, is that now he's got to measure up. And while I don't think this guy will offer Nikita much in the way of a challenge, first fight back, I get it. I've mentioned this before. Good fight for him. And but the test will come probably in about another 5 fights. When he's had 15 fights, when they've probably got no choice but to step him up to the world level, what is he going to offer? And it's all well and good to be investing in him now, but Nikita's going to have to measure up, and he's got some big decisions to make. I know we've spoken about this ad nauseum about, is he going to have to make the same calls as Tim with his team and everything else? Yeah, well, it's going to be very fascinating to see how he goes. Now, I love Nikita as a fighter, but he, excuse me, in my opinion, he really needs to make some adjustments in his style. Now, one thing I will give him credit for, in the interview, he actually said that he realises that he can be a bit loose, he can get a bit hot-headed, he can stray off the game plan, he can get a little bit involved in the fight when he needs to probably back off a little bit. And that's probably the first thing you've got to do as a fighter. You've got to admit your mistakes and own up to your mistakes, and then obviously aim to fix them. And I think this guy, from what I've seen, will be the perfect fight for him, because he's not really going to offer much, in my opinion anyway, in a way of someone that's really going to hurt Nikita or make him pay for any mistakes that he makes. So it might be a good opportunity for him just to practice a few things they've done in training camp and put them into practice, and hopefully get an impressive stoppage of Ismaili. So, when is that? August the 20th. Now, I'm not expecting too much from Michael Zarafa's opponent. I'm not expecting too much from Brock Jarvis's opponent. I'm probably not expecting too much from Jazzy Parr's opponent. But the one fight, I think I've said a couple of times, which should be a really good scrap, is Ahmed Reda and Bruno Torimo. It was interesting, actually, that Michael Zarafa was asked who he thought would win between Ahmed Reda and Harry Garside if they ever got together, and he did say Ahmed Reda. Yeah, I can't say I agree with that from what I've seen so far. Look, Ahmed Reda might prove me wrong with a really good win over Bruno Torimo, but I just think he's got some limitations at the moment. Harry Garside is a very, very good fighter, and I know that apparently Ahmed Reda lost a close disputed decision to Harry in the Olympic trials. Well, you know, I didn't see the fight, so I can't comment, but one thing I will say is the amateurs are a hell of a lot different to the pros. That actually might work in Reda's favour, where he's not sort of chasing Harry around for, just for 3 rounds. He's got 10 rounds to do it. 3 rounds is a hell of a, well, it's not much time. It's a hell of a lot less time than 10 rounds, of course, where you can't really put a game plan into practice and everything else. But I just think Harry Garside, I don't think it would matter whether it's 3, 6, 9, 10, 12 rounds. I think Harry Garside would just pick Ahmed Reda apart for 10 rounds or whatever it is, and get a win. But look, it's good that fighters are actually, well, and the public are sort of talking about that fight. Ahmed Reda's done a great job in talking himself up into this fight, where every time he's interviewed now it comes up. So good on him. That's what you got to do to get these fights. You've got to talk it up, and of course then you've got to back it up. But I just think if he had just been a prelim fighter in the background and just doing his thing, well, his name wouldn't even be mentioned. But every time he's interviewed now, who do you want to fight? It's Harry Garside. So a job well done to Ahmed Reda. What else is happening in the world of boxing at the moment? Bakhram Murat-Luben and Murat-Luben. Good and bad news. The good news is that they've agreed to fight each other. Fantastic. Murat-Luben stepped up to fight, as they say, the boogeyman at 154 in Bakhram Murat-Luben. The bad news is that no one will promote it. No one wants to put it on. So now they're trying to search for some promoter to actually put the fight on. So I'm not sure with the purse bid, or obviously didn't go to purse bids, or else they'd have a promoter, wouldn't they? But they've agreed to fight. Bakhram's, well, he's the champion, of course. Luben's the #1 challenger. So Bakhram is fulfilling his obligations to the #1 challenger. Luben has, you would have thought they would quiet cars like that down, wouldn't you? But Luben, being the #1 challenger, has accepted, but now they just can't find anyone to actually put their hand in the pocket and put it on. So they are the challengers these days of putting on the big fights. These fighters want to get paid, and unfortunately that fight is not going to be a big attraction. It's not going to draw a lot of money and sponsors and gate receipts and everything else. So we'll see the golden age of boxing at the moment with the amount of money they're making, but then you get an anomaly like this fight where really good fight on paper, but no one wants to actually pay to put it on. So we'll watch that with interest as well. I was going to call a transgender fighter from the Olympics, Imran Khalif. Now, it looks like with the Olympics in 2028 is that will be stringent testing for all fighters, and because I know we've been over this a lot, by the way, so I won't keep going over old ground, but if you remember back in 2024, the International Olympic Committee overruled the IBA, which is the amateur body, who had actually barred Khalif and the Taiwanese boxer as well from competing. The International Boxing Committee turfed them out, took it over themselves of running the tournament, and allowed them to continue. In 2028, it's not going to be the case. Looks like all fighters will be subject to testosterone tests. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert here. We've all pretended to be experts last year. But it looks like every single fighter will be tested, and if all the chromosomes and all the rones out there, the testosterones and chromosomes and all those zones out there, if it doesn't marry up, then you will not be able to compete. So I think that's a real good step in a positive direction. Now this Imran Khalif, by the way, is not transgender. I think always lived as a male, a female, even though born apparently with the male chromosome. So again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert about it, but that's what's going to happen. There'll be no, because I think with the International Olympic Committee, their take on the whole thing is if you have a female passport, you are able to compete. That's the reason why both of those boxers were able to compete at the 2024 Olympics, because the passport said they were female. Now it's going to be, well, we don't care what your passport says, you are subject to tests, and if you don't pass the test, then you cannot compete as a female. So I know they'll probably find another way to blame this on Trump, but I actually welcome it. I think we have to have a level playing field in all sports, and females should, especially in a sport like boxing, should have the ability to compete against fighters of the same gender. And geez, if I just open a can of worms with that, we'll see. All right. What else is happening? Katie Taylor looks like she might be on the verge of retirement. I think Eddie Hearn has said that unless she can get a fight at Croke Park in Ireland, that's the big stadium over there where they play the Gaelic football. Her dream is to go there. I think they get sort of 60 or 70,000 people there. and her dream is to fight there. I think Eddie Hearn did say that's probably after the Serrano fight, the third one, that's probably for the first time she said, if I fight again, not when I fight again. And he thinks that the only way we'll probably get her back in the ring is if she does get a fight at her hometown in Croke Island. So let's hope so. I think it'd be good to probably see her to go out with one more. I think, who's the girl that beat her? Chantel Cameron is probably the girl to maybe fight, to put that to bed, to have a 2-1 advantage in that little trilogy they've got. Might be a good way to go out. So either way, she's been probably, in my opinion, the greatest female fighter of all time, and just a really, really good ambassador for women's boxing, unlike Clarissa Shields, who I think is a disgrace to women's boxing. She definitely in the top sort of 2 or 3 of all time, but the way she carries herself, if I had a daughter, there's no way I would want her using Clarissa Shields as an example. 100% Katie Taylor, an ornament to the sport. So guys, that's going to do it for today. Actually, speaking of, I won't do for today, one more thing. Speaking of Katie Taylor and British boxing and everything else, did you know that if Nick Ball, come here man, loses to Sam Goodman next weekend or whenever it is, that Britain will not have a current world champion? And back, I think they used an example, back in 2016, they had 14 champions. These are male champions, by the way, not female champions. They're actually killing it in the females. But in the male boxing, in 2016, they had 14 world champions. At the moment, they have 1. And if Sammy Goodman can pull off the upset next weekend, they will have 0. So when's the last time that Britain have never had a world champion? Just amazing. And probably goes to show how well the Aussies are doing at the moment, with a population far less than England, and probably not as many resources and everything and advantages that they have over there, the Poms, as far as backing and all the rest of it. That we do all right over here. The Aussies are doing all right. We just get by on old-fashioned hard work. But yeah, so a big one there for Sammy. Might be something we can get over the Poms anyway, that we can make them have no world champions in male boxing. So having said that, we'll leave it at that today, guys. Have a great Friday, I should say. It's Friday, sorry. And we'll catch you tomorrow.